What if beauty isn't a luxury, but a form of healing? What if your craving for harmony, art, or softness isn't superficial, but sacred? Let me tell you, for gifted, sensitive, intuitive women, beauty is not optional. In my humble opinion, it is necessary medicine. And in a world that praises hustle and logic, this episode is your permission to return to what nourishes your nervous system through color, music, texture, beauty, and creative expression. Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern-day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep-feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright, and your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. So you may not know this, but you probably know it intuitively. Beauty activates safety. It brings us into the present moment and it invites us to soften. Beauty reminds us that we're allowed to enjoy being alive. And psychologically, beauty evokes awe, gratitude, and pleasure, all of which reduce cortisol and increase well-being. So this isn't just poetic, it's measurable. Research in positive psychology shows that aesthetic experience contributes to flourishing. So this is not just silly, luxurious, nice to have kind of thing. When you light a candle, or listen to music, or arrange a space with intention, this is what you're doing. You are regulating, healing, and aligning. And this is especially true for gifted women whose sensory systems are exquisitely tuned. Gifted women are often deeply sensitive to beauty. I know this has always been the case for myself and so many women that I have worked with and talked to over the years. We naturally notice patterns and harmony and imbalance. Are you the kind of person that walks into the room and if something is not quite right, not even just in your own home, like in another place, and you just immediately pick up on the fact that just something isn't in balance and maybe you know exactly what it is and you really want to go over there and fix it, right? I really can relate to this. We crave depth, we crave cohesion, even elegance. And whether that's in a conversation, a home, a piece of music or art, this is what sings to our hearts and our minds. But for many of us, that craving has been shamed. Would you agree? Has that been your experience? It's like we get these mixed messages in our culture that beauty on the one hand, as it relates to maybe the way we look, is important and everyone's trying to keep up with the next best trend. But beyond that, we're told beauty is extra, or that beauty in the form of creativity is not quote unquote productive. But in reality, beauty, my friend, is our way back to ourselves. So I'll tell just a little story of my own journey. Again, as a small child, I was always very much into music and art and making things pretty from a really young age. It was just sort of how I was wired, I guess. And not only did I enjoy doing that on my own and creating things, I also was the kind of person that when I witnessed something beautiful, and I don't even mean just aesthetically, but something beautiful or excellent, I remember just getting overcome with emotion. It was so touching to me, like it would just touch me on this deep level. And I'm still that way. But somewhere along the way, like many of you I'm sure can relate to, those parts of myself got buried beneath more quote unquote important things, like getting good grades in school and then getting good grades in college and then doing well in grad school, and then getting a job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And while there was creativity for sure in some of what I was doing to a certain extent, I often said that therapy was a really creative act because you're always working with different people and you have to be really creative in the conversations and just the process that you take someone on. So while that is true, I didn't realize until I hit my breaking point several years ago that even though I had bits and pieces in my life that were focused on things like maybe music or fashion, I really wasn't fully leaning into it, meaning it was getting like the leftovers. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I had time, maybe I'd pick up the guitar. And the only time I really picked up the guitar was when I had to show up and, for example, lead worship at my church, and I had to sing and play guitar. So I knew I had to practice and be ready for that. But outside of that, just for my own enjoyment, there wasn't very much time. Or let's say fashion. I'm someone who, again, since a very, very young age, loved fashion. My mother was a seamstress, and I grew up going to the store and picking out fabrics and touching the fabrics and looking at the designs and picking out, the different patterns and then coming up with a new creation that my mom would make for me that no one else at school would have. And so just from a young age, I loved creating things like that. And then as an adult, at some point in my career, I was the head of a boarding school. And right or wrong, I told myself a story that was heads of boarding schools, especially a certain kind of boarding school in New England, right? You can't dress just however you want. I mean, part of this is professionalism. But if I'm being honest, I so wanted to just dress the way I felt, expressed who I was. And I did to some degree, but can I tell you, and this might sound really silly, but I don't think it's silly. When I had my last day in that job, and I loved that job, um, but there was this part of me that was so excited to donate all of the clothes that were in my closet, really for, 15, maybe 20 years, and start wearing the things every day that really brought me joy. I mean, I don't know why I didn't think I could wear certain things as the head of school, but I didn't. And I think there is some wisdom to that. But there was just like my heart was singing that I could wear whatever I wanted when I was just at home. And I had this time period after I left that job where I wasn't even focused on the next thing. I was focused on my healing. Then we had the pandemic and we were all at home. And yes, I know there was also sort of like, let's just be in our sweatpants all the time during the pandemic. But for me, I was stepping back into the part of myself that wanted to just, wear a pretty dress for no other reason, but that I just wanted to put it on that day. So I share all those things because in my own journey, and even when we moved homes, we moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina. And when we moved, we were starting from scratch. So, which is kind of a crazy story, but we were not like normal people. We didn't pack up our home and bring all of our things to North Carolina. So I had literally a blank slate with this home. And when I tell you the healing process while I was in the worst and deepest parts of my journey with endometriosis and uterine fibroids, and then had to have a hysterectomy and all of this just really challenging health stuff. Meanwhile, I was making my house beautiful and I was going to little stores and, finding pieces of art that lit me up and coming across local artists that I fell in love with and finding a neat, antique piece that you couldn't find in a catalog. Like I was just having so much fun designing and decorating the home because that brings me joy. I always say if I had chosen a different path and didn't become a psychologist, I would have loved to become an interior designer. But that was an important part of my healing process. It wasn't frivolous. It wasn't just luxurious. It was necessary for me to step back into these parts of myself and reclaim them as part of my wholeness. So, for me, just to recap, reconnecting to beauty in the forms that were meaningful to me, it wasn't just about aesthetics. It really was truly about aliveness. It was like literally, I'm coming back alive. It was so amazing. It reminded me of who I was before I got burned out and all the pressure and the performance of all of those years, really my whole life from like adolescence until I switched gears. It was just a non-stop train of performance and pressure. I don't know if you can relate to that, but the beauty restored my rhythm. And most importantly, it brought me back to my joy. So what you need to understand is that beauty truly heals the nervous system. So does creativity. So whether it's painting or singing, curating a space, arranging flowers, putting together an outfit, whatever it is for you, these acts actually bring coherence to your system. Why? Because creative expression is a form of truth-telling. It lets your inner world come to the surface safely, soulfully, and often in these different ways without words. And that really matters because many of us as gifted women were taught to perform, but not necessarily to express, to be impressive, but not really to be real. So when you create beauty without agenda, you are practicing sovereignty and trust and embodiment, and your body feels it. I have to tell you that I just love surrounding myself with friends who, you know who you are, who are artists, whether you're a professional artist in some way or shape or form, or whether you just, you're an artist by heart. Maybe you create visual things, or maybe you create musical things, or maybe you design spaces or arrange flowers. I just love surrounding myself with women like that because they are all in their own special way telling their stories. They're telling their truth. And even if the art isn't necessarily something that, resonates with me, I love it because it is who they are. They are reflecting who they are. And that's what this is all about. And that's the piece that I really want you to understand today. Beauty has been co-opted, unfortunately, by consumerism and perfectionism, but its essence, it's just so sacred. It's like in a bowl of fruit or a color palette or a poem or even just a moment of stillness. It's how we hold ourselves. It's how we treat others. And it's how we design our inner and our outer worlds. So keep in mind, beauty is structure with soul. It's expression with resonance, and it's form that reflects meaning. And for gifted women who feel deeply and crave that resonance, beauty is a language of safety. It's the opposite of chaos, and it's the embodiment of alignment. So here's your invitation. Where can you let beauty be part of your healing, be part of your personal growth and transformation? And what simple act of creative expression can bring you home to yourself today? You don't need to be an artist. You don't need to be a professional anything. You just need to pay attention to what moves you. That is my wish for you today. I hope that you find some even very small way this week to bring more beauty into your life and to express yourself through beauty. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to take the quiz if you want to explore how giftedness may be showing up in your sensitivity, creativity, and inner life. And share this episode with someone who finds beauty healing or who you think might benefit from a little more beauty in her life. And finally, if you're loving these conversations, subscribe, leave a review, send it to a friend. This, my friend, is the art of a beautiful life, and you were made to live it. Until next time. keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.